Star Wars 7x7 episode 2254. Well, there's rumors and leaks and spoilers, and then there's just logic, and that's one of the things that I try to lean on when I can when it comes to projecting what should be coming down the line in terms of Star Wars reveals, and one of them that I had talked about a few months ago has actually come to fruition, and we'll talk about that today. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So, months ago when we first learned about the High Republic Publishing Initiative, that would be multiple novels and multiple comic book series coming out and unfortunately delayed into 2021 because of everything going on with the pandemic. One thing that was notably absent from any of the announcements was the presence of Yoda. After all, the High Republic is taking place 200 years prior to the events of the Phantom Menace, so that would mean that Yoda is not only still alive, but also still pretty darn old, like 700 years old, right? So he would have to be a part of this whole series of tales and adventures, right? Like, it only stood to reason. Well, finally there has been a reveal. So a couple of items of concept art were shared on StarWars.com, and we have found out that Yoda will be appearing in the younger comic book reader situation. IDW is the outfit that publishes those, and so that's the one that is going to have Yoda. And perhaps I should say so far, but we'll get to that momentarily. The IDW series is being written by Daniel José Older, he of the Lando and Han novel Last Shot. And for the Star Wars story, he says it's especially exciting to be able to introduce him in the era of the High Republic. He says the High Republic Yoda is a journeyman out in the galaxy, while he's already a respected member of the Jedi Council at this point. We meet Yoda in IDW's The High Republic Adventures series doing what he loves best, looking out for the young folks. In this case, a group of Padawans traveling around the galaxy to learn the ways of the Jedi with a hands-on approach. He says you can think of it as the Force Study Abroad program, basically. And they've done concept art for a number of the characters who are going to be appearing in the High Republic, and possibly, seemingly, regardless of whether those characters will appear in a visual medium like the comics, but Yoda is going to appear in the comics in a visual medium, and so there were actually conversations about updating his look. The story actually says with an appearance in a visual medium, that would mean a new design for this iconic character. It was a challenge not to be taken lightly. So Troy Alders, who is an art director with Lucasfilm, says the goal was to update Yoda to be careful and be true to the Yoda that we all know and love. So basically they kind of smoothed out a couple of wrinkles to some degree, and they updated his wardrobe. Now, that may not sound like particularly remarkable to you, but there's actually kind of an interesting clue about the High Republic in that whole discussion, I think. So there's a wrap-up basically of the discussions about how they went through, so many iterations and artists that got involved and so on and so forth. But Alders says dressing Yoda for this epic time period and creating designs adorned with gold using beautiful fabrics and details is something that he and all of the Jedi very much deserve, and the end result, I think, is gorgeous and really celebrates this exciting and visually rich Gilded Era. Now, I'm not exactly deeply versed in American literature, but hearing that reminded me of the Gilded Age, which is a phrase that was coined by Mark Twain about the post-Civil War era in the United States. The idea that things looked very pretty on the surface, but that there was a lot of corruption underneath it. Now, it doesn't sound like the idea for the High Republic is to do anything with the Sith as the villains. I mean, they've already talked about the Nihil, Nihil, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, as the villains and sort of, very pirate-like species. So I think we're also like, a little bit past the time, or before the time, where Plagueis would be coming around, who was Darth Sidious's master. So I don't think that's necessarily happening, but by the time we see the Jedi Order in the prequel trilogy, we're starting to see a Jedi Order where, the foundation has been wearing away, basically. And so I'm wondering if this notion of referring to it as a Gilded Era is any kind of hint that might have to do with the possible start of the fall of the Jedi Order. A very long fall, right? A very long game. Certainly Palpatine was very into the long game as far as these things go, but I wonder if this is going to be a first situation where we start to see how the Jedi Order could possibly be vulnerable to the sort of thing that eventually happens with the fall of the Republic as we see depicted in the prequel trilogy. So yeah, all that just from the phrase Gilded Era, right? Anyway, so as far as the so far thing that I mentioned earlier, I will explain that in just a second. Of course, just a brief note of thanks to our friends at Audible, and once again, you've heard me say it before, it's sw7x7.com/audible that gets you access to the free 30-day trial and free audiobook download. Thrawn Ascendancy is out, or Book 1 Chaos Rising is out, with all the colons in the title you can imagine. And that or hundreds of other Star Wars books, whether they're new canon or expanded universe / legends, thousands of other books to completely meet any fancy that you have. Once again, it's sw7x7.com/audible, and you using that link helps support the show here. Thank you very much for considering it. So that so far business. In that article, Daniel José Older says that Yoda is already a member of the Jedi Council. So if that's the case, not if, but since that's the case, then it stands to reason he will appear in other stories within this High Republic publication initiative. So we know that there's another comic series. We know that there are 3 books, and one's an adult, one's a young adult, one is a middle grade reader situation. He is bound to show up in at least one of those, and probably more. I think if I had to bet on one, it would be Light of the Jedi, which is the adult novel by Charles Soule. That's the one that he would appear in. If it's only got to be one other one, that would be it. Although I'll also say that while he is going to be the starring character, the lead role in this IDW comic series, if he appears in anything else, I think it's going to be in a supporting role, because they have a lot of new characters to which they want to introduce us. And so if he shows up, i.e. in Light of the Jedi, he'll be doing things as part of the council, but I think they have other mouths to feed from a narrative storytelling perspective. So I think he is going to be in a supporting role in those other stories. So would love to hear what you think about that. If you think I'm on the mark or off the mark, by all means, let me know wherever there's a comment section. And if it's not where you're catching this podcast, then home base at sw7x7.com. And that is going to do it for the episode today. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always. And may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.